19 flight attendant secrets they never tell. 19. Mile High membership. It's not actually against the law to join the Mile High Club, and we all know that people are always working to earn the cred. The long line of people waiting to use the bathroom is often a dead giveaway that you're trying to earn your wings in the Mile High Club. Technically, it's not illegal to become a member. There are even private charter flights for couples to do just that. However, what typically results in the end of the Mile High Club participation is a passenger that asks the flight attendants to intervene. With that being said, if you're getting it on in the lavatory and a crew member asks you to stop, obey. It's disobeying the cabin crew that will land you in hot water and possibly in jail. So if you must earn your wings, make it snappy. Number 18. Fair game in first class. Passengers in first class can be demanding. Mandy Smith, 40, released a book called Cabin Fever about her 10-year stint flying with a certain high-end airline. It gives a glimpse of the things flight attendants must endure on the job. Some examples are being groped, having food thrown at her, and looking after a woman who had suffered a miscarriage in the economy toilets, all the while maintaining an air of calm professionalism. Smith recounts the time the mother of a very famous American star traveling without her son headbutted one of Smith's colleagues, causing her nose to break. Smith said as soon as the woman was on the plane, she threw her fur coat at me and was ordered to store it. At that moment, Smith knew she was in trouble. Number 17. Premium Prima Donnas. More tales involve the premium economy section. It's sometimes described as the worst part for rowdy passengers because they thought they were better than people in economy, but could not afford the things people get in first class. Smith cited one experience where a man threw a pizza in her face simply because he ranted about it not being good enough for his son. Number 16. You're fired. Flight attendants can get fired for crazy reasons. It's probably not surprising that newly hired flight attendants get placed on a strict probation period for 6 months. However, they've been let go for some unusual reasons, like in the case of one female flight attendant tying the uniform sweater around her waist. Yep, the preppy 80s fashion trend is a big no-no to some airlines. Other firings are a bit more justified, like the new hire that pretended to be out of the probationary period so she could fly home for free, since travel benefits don't begin until the probation period ends. Now that one I get. One of the most surprising violations, though, is flying while ill. If they call in sick, they are not allowed to fly. They cannot even be a passenger on another airline. Doing so can result in immediate termination. Now, we all wish our coworkers would just stay home when they're sick, but to be terminated if you don't stay home? That's strict. Number 15. Diet Coke drag. They absolutely despise Diet Coke. That bubbly, acidic nectar is pure hell to flight attendants. The reason is because it takes so long to pour. Because it's so fizzy, the fizz takes eons to settle at 35,000 feet. Flight attendants say that in the time it takes to pour 1 cup of Diet Coke to a passenger, they could have served 3 different passengers their beverages. While they aren't supposed to hand out full cans of soda, sometimes they do, just to keep things moving along. Number 14. Open doors, no moolah. During the pre-flight time when the doors are open, they aren't getting paid. Flight attendants hustle like crazy to help passengers cram bags into the overhead bins, direct them to their seats, and get the flight ready so the pilot can take off. However, all that hard work doesn't earn them an extra dime on their paychecks. And yes, when the flights get delayed, canceled, or they have annoying layovers, it's just as aggravating to them as it is to the regular passengers. Perhaps even more because they aren't getting paid for that time. Airlines do compensate for this, though, by giving each flight attendant an hourly expense allowance of $1.50, which starts when they check into the airport to start a shift, and stops when the wheels hit the gate at their home base. While it's not a lot, every little bit does help. Number 13. Power off, please. Here's the thing about your electronics and powered gadgets. When you board a plane, they always tell you to turn off your devices. But does it really matter if you do? According to one woman whose sister is a flight attendant, she says her sister will go to the back of the plane and use her phone for texts, after she informs the passengers that they have to turn their electronics off. Pilots in training all use their phones to snap photos from way high up in the sky and post them to social media while they're in the air. though it is usually the ones riding back seat for training purposes, not the ones piloting the plane. The full-fledged pilots also say the same. One pilot mentions that it is completely useless to turn off electronics on a plane. Those types of devices are not going to bring down an aircraft. But the bigger picture is that mobile devices can be very distracting. Just imagine sitting in the flight deck, descending to your destination, and hearing the interference of 100+ cell phones, all picking up a signal. Some pilots have mentioned how they have actually missed hearing clearance calls because of those types of distractions or interferences. Number 12. Don't drink the water. Watch out for the water in those tiny bathrooms. The water that comes from the lavatory is not fit for human consumption. It's cringeworthy to even wash your hands in it, since parasites become tolerant to the cleansers used in this water. If you're thirsty, opt for bottled water instead. To clean your hands, bring hand sanitizer with you. Number 11. Changing table tray. Ever hear someone say that a surface he just scrubbed is clean enough to eat off of? Well, the tray table is not one of them. Consider wiping them down with wet naps laced with Lysol, or at least wipe them with a sanitizer. Flight attendants can tell you that those trays are never cleaned. The amount of germs on them is astounding. What's more disgusting is many parents change their baby's diapers on them. Do you think they've wiped with sanitizer or anything after? Likely they did not. So before you dig into your rubber chicken and let your dinner roll flop onto the tray, remember, the added bacteria-laced baby diaper seasoning you're adding? Bon appetit! Number 10. Creature comforts. You sure you want a blanket or pillow? Are you really that cold that you want a blanket? Do you really need a pillow? You might think twice about that. A former popular airline flight attendant talked about those creature comfort items. She described how they were just folded back up and shoved in the storage space awaiting the next flight, awaiting their next passenger, wanting to be warm and comfy. She said the only time she has witnessed new clean linens was on a very first flight coming from certain cities. The tip here is to bring your own blanket and pillow. Unless, of course, you're into snuggling up to and wrapping yourself in someone else's dead skin cells and head grease. Ugh. Number 9. Fly, Little Birdy. Planes can still fly while broken. Oh, goody. This is one that'll make you want to hang on to your armrests for dear life. After you clean them with sanitizer, of course. Apparently, there is a huge list of things that can be missing from an aircraft while still being allowed to fly. Is this like the food industry saying it's acceptable to have a certain amount of roaches or rat parts in things like peanut butter? Not exactly, but sort of. There is actually a list called a minimum equipment list, or MEL. It may be counterintuitive, but MEL is a list of what is acceptable to be broken while still allowing an airplane to be flight-worthy. Surprisingly, an aircraft's operational ranges or limits can be altered in response to broken items. For example, if a particular type of light is broken, the plane will only be scheduled for daytime flights. But do take to heart, nothing on the MEL has anything to do with the ability of the plane to take off, fly, or land properly. It just sounds a little freaky at first. Hey, we drive vehicles with broken parts all the time, and if the radio works well, just turn up the volume so you don't hear the rattles and squeaks. Number 8. Cheap tickets. Believe it or not, there is a best time to buy tickets. If I were a selfish person, I wouldn't share this secret. But I'm a giver, so here goes. Flight attendants spill the goods about when to hunt for the best deals. One's experience in the revenue management department touts that grabbing yourself US-based tickets on a Tuesday afternoon can save you some serious scratch. Moreover, the cheapest time to fly is on Tuesday or Wednesday, or even Saturday. That makes sense. But I'm grabbing my next ticket on a Tuesday, so I can afford my own blanket, pillow, and hand sanitizer. Number 7. Why settle for half? You see the drink carts heading up the aisles. Your mouth starts to water as you imagine enjoying a refreshing cold drink. Then you finally get one, and it's all ice. Just a splash of your liquid heaven, and it's over before you know it. But the secret is out. Don't settle for that tiny cup when you can get the whole soft drink. If you want to drink more than ice, simply ask the flight attendant politely if you can have the full can instead. And if your drink of choice is Diet Coke, even better. Your flight attendant will likely be thrilled. Number 6. Tipping tips. They don't work on tips, but all airline companies, as well as the Association of Flight Attendants, discourages tipping. Note, We said discouraged, not necessarily against the rules. If you offer a tip to your flight attendant, they will most likely turn it down. Try offering a second time or even slipping a few bills to them though, and it will often be greatly appreciated. It may also net you a free snack or an extra strong drink. But honestly, the best thing you can do for flight attendants when you receive extraordinary service is to write a letter or an email to the airline praising their work, or even the entire cabin crew if applicable. It will help boost their career and allow them to rise in the ranks. Number 5. Cockpit Tours. Back in the day, it was a big deal to be invited into the cockpit of a plane. You can still get a tour of the cockpit, believe it or not. If you loved getting a chance to meet the pilots and check out the cockpit as a kid, there's good news. You can still do that on most airlines. All you need to do is ask politely, but do so after the plane has landed. Before takeoff, things are too busy and the pilots are rushing to do their checks and get the plane off the ground. The next time you fly, try asking as you deplane and see what happens. Number 4. Safety seats. The safest seats are in the back of the plane. While we never want to think about the plane crashing, it's a smart plan to try to sit in the back. Sitting at the back of the plane, particularly in the middle seats, will increase your survival rate if the plane were to crash. And the other bonus is that you are significantly closer to the bathrooms. Number 3. Brace yourself. A rough landing doesn't mean a bad pilot. Hard landings in bad weather don't mean your pilot is bad at his job. It's actually done intentionally. In order to land properly on a wet surface and not hydroplane out of control, the pilot must touch down hard to puncture through that water layer. Landings are nothing more than controlled crashes. Well, doesn't that sound pleasant? Oof. At least you're putting your life in the hands of someone heavily trained for crashing. Number 2. Captain fear. Even those brave pilots have their moments of fear. It takes an extraordinary person to become a pilot. The men and women that pilot our aircraft are very brave and skilled at what they do. Takeoffs and landings don't scare them one bit. However, there are things that will stoke the fires of fear in any pilot. One pilot tells the story of a friend who was flying overseas when a bomb threat was received. What is one to do in that situation? Well, follow protocol, of course. Yes, they have procedures for those kinds of things. They must keep calm and not let the passengers know. The pilot described running on adrenaline with every bump of turbulence, but all the crew members were trained routinely to keep their cool and take care of us, the passengers, restless and excited to safely arrive in our destination. Number 1. Safe travels. Planes are still the safest way to travel. We hear it often, and it's true. Because of stringent aviation regulations worldwide, pilots undergo extensive training to earn their bars. Statistically, the risks of life-threatening situations regarding aircraft are very low. It's the person sitting next to you that's probably more worrisome than anything your pilot will have to navigate through. Please hit like, share, and comment below if you want to help us grow. Thanks for watching.